My sister screamed, "You've done nothing for me," before throwing me out of her wedding planning. Weeks later, her fiancé called begging, "Why did the caterer cancel?" I answered, "I thought I'd done nothing for you." The entire wedding collapsed. My sister texted, "You ruined everything." I replied, "You said I never helped," then blocked her. I've always been the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who held the family together when things got messy, because someone had to. My parents used to call me their steady girl. That sounded sweet when I was a kid, but now, at 31, I've come to realize it was just code for the one who cleans up everyone else's mess. And no one gave me more to clean up than my younger sister, Kayla. Kayla was born 3 years after me, and from the moment she arrived, the entire world seemed to revolve around her. She was the loud, charming, radiant one, the kind of person who could lie straight to your face and people would still call her passionate. Me, I was the quiet one who stayed up late balancing bills, fixing problems, and swallowing resentment like it was medicine. When we were growing up, I learned that fairness didn't really exist in our house. It was about who made the most noise. Kayla would scream until she got her way, and I'd get lectured for not being patient with her. If I wanted to go out, I had to finish chores first. If Kayla wanted to go out, she just did, and Mom would say, "She's young, let her have fun." By the time I was 18, I had learned to live around her chaos. When she flunked her first semester of college, I paid for her textbooks so she could retake her classes. When she got fired for her first job for skipping shifts, she crashed on my couch for a few weeks, which turned into 6 months. And when she maxed out her credit card, I co-signed a loan to help her fix her credit score. I told myself that's what family did for each other, but deep down, I knew it was one-sided. Still, I kept helping, because every time I tried to pull back, my mom would remind me, "You know how sensitive Kayla is. She needs your support." And I'd fold, every single time. So when Kayla called one evening, her voice high-pitched with excitement, and said, "Guess what? I'm getting married." I swallowed my skepticism and congratulated her. I even meant it. She'd been dating her boyfriend, Mark, for 2 years. And while he wasn't exactly my favorite person, too smug, too agreeable when she was wrong, he seemed to genuinely care for her. Within a week, my mom and Kayla had drafted me into wedding planning duty. Not asked, drafted. Kayla said, "You're so organized and you have good taste. You can handle the planning stuff, right? I want everything to be perfect." It wasn't really a question. I agreed because saying no to Kayla always felt like declaring war. At first, I told myself it would be fine. I could manage a few vendor calls, help her organize a budget, maybe accompany her to dress fittings. It was her wedding, after all, her special day. But what started as a few small tasks quickly became an unpaid full-time job. Within a month, I was managing everything. Reaching out to venues, collecting quotes from caterers, coordinating photographers, drafting spreadsheets for guest lists, and even handling deposits. Kayla was too stressed to do it herself, which really meant she didn't want to lift a finger. Whenever she did show up to a meeting or a tasting, she'd scroll through her phone the entire time, then suddenly announce she didn't like anything. At one point, she looked at a beautiful floral arrangement I'd worked hard to negotiate a discount on and said, "Ugh, that looks cheap. Don't you have better taste than that?" I bit my tongue and said, "Sure, I'll look for something else." Then she told our mother later that night, "I don't know what I'd do without my sister. She's such a perfectionist. It's like having a professional planner for free." Everyone laughed and praised her for being so on top of things. I was invisible. I'd get texts from relatives saying, "Kayla told us all the work she's doing. You must be so proud of her." And I just type, "Yeah, she's handling it well," because correcting them felt petty. There were nights when I sat at my dining room table surrounded by checklists and contracts, eating cold takeout, wondering how I'd ended up here. Once again, cleaning up her chaos. But I told myself it was temporary. Just get through the wedding and then you can rest. Kayla, on the other hand, treated the whole thing like she was directing a movie. Every decision had to revolve around her image, how she looked, how much people admired her, how grand it all seemed. She'd reject venues because the lighting in the ballroom makes me look tired. She'd demand name-brand decor because people will know if it's not high-end. At one point, she even said, "You should pay the deposit for the dress. You make more money than I do, and you know I'll pay you back after the wedding." I wanted to say no. God, I wanted to. But you said it in front of Mom, and before I could speak, Mom chimed in with, "You know your sister's under pressure, honey. Just help her this once." So I did. Again. I paid the deposit, arranged the fittings, managed the dressmaker's schedule, and when Kayla posted a photo of the gown on social media, she captioned it, "So grateful to have found my dream dress all by myself." No mention of me. No mention of the person making phone calls, managing deadlines, or keeping her dream from collapsing. And yet I stayed quiet. Part of me hoped that deep down she appreciated it, that when the big day came, she'd look at me and finally say, "Thank you for everything." But that hope was a fragile thing. I'd been holding on to it for years, through every favor, every loan, every sleepless night spent fixing her problems. What I didn't realize then was that this wedding would be the breaking point, not because of one big fight, but because of a sentence. 7 words that shattered any illusion that Kayla saw me as anything more than her personal assistant. But that moment hadn't come yet. For now, I was still the helpful sister, doing everything right, quietly building the foundation for a wedding that wasn't mine, for a bride who didn't deserve it. And I had no idea that all the work I was doing, the calls, the contracts, the vendors under my name, would soon become the very thing that unraveled her entire day. Because sometimes, when you let entitled people dig their own hole, all you have to do is stop shoveling. It started small. Little digs, comments I brushed off because I told myself Kayla was just stressed. Every bride gets overwhelmed, right? That's what I kept repeating to myself. But with Kayla, stress wasn't an excuse. It was fuel. The closer the wedding got, the worse she became. Suddenly, every decision I made was wrong. The venue I'd reserved, too small. The caterer I'd negotiated a discount with, too cheap. The floral arrangements I'd spent hours designing, too boring. Every time I tried to explain that we had a budget, she'd roll her eyes and say, "God, you're so negative. No wonder you're still single." That one stung. But I didn't bite. I'd learned years ago that fighting Kayla was like arguing with a wall, loud, immovable, and convinced it was right. She started calling me at odd hours, sometimes at midnight, panicking about things that didn't matter. "The tablecloths have to be ivory, not cream. How could you not know that?" she'd yell. I'd rub my temples, exhausted after work, and say, "Kayla, they look exactly the same." "No, they don't. You're ruining my vision." And then she'd hang up. I'd stare at the phone, wondering why I was still doing this. The thing about Kayla was that she always needed to be the victim. The universe was against her, everyone was ungrateful, and if something went wrong, it was never her fault. I'd seen it my whole life, how she'd twist reality to make herself look blameless. And every time, my parents would rush to defend her. "She doesn't mean it," my mom would say. "She's just under a lot of pressure." Pressure. That was the word they always used to justify her behavior. Meanwhile, I was under pressure too, juggling my full-time job, bills, and now the demands of a wedding I wasn't even in. The tension finally boiled over one Saturday afternoon. We were at a meeting with the event coordinator to finalize the food menu. I'd already spent weeks narrowing down options, collecting quotes, and confirming dietary restrictions for the guests. All Kayla had to do was make a choice.
The coordinator, a polite woman named Janine, smiled at her and said, "So, Kayla, we'll just need you to pick between the beef and salmon entrees." Kayla frowned and said, "I don't like either. Didn't I tell you I wanted lobster?" Janine hesitated. "That wasn't in the original quote. It's nearly double the cost." Kayla turned to me with that sharp, accusing tone I knew too well. "Why didn't you tell me that? You always do this, cutting corners." I was stunned. "Cutting corners? Kayla, you said we needed to stay within budget. You told me—" She cut me off, snapping, "You don't listen. You never listen. I swear you've done nothing for me this whole time except make things harder." The words hit me like a slap. There it was. 7 words that shattered whatever was left of my patience. "You've done nothing for me." It echoed in my head over and over while she kept ranting about how she didn't understand her vision or what it's like to be a bride. I looked around the room, Janine trying not to make eye contact, my mom staring at her lap, pretending not to hear the humiliation in Kayla's voice. I said quietly, "You know what, Kayla? You're right. Maybe I haven't done enough." She crossed her arms. Finally, some honesty. Then, as if that wasn't enough, she snapped, "You're not even good at this. I should have just hired someone professional instead of relying on you out of pity." That was it. I gathered my papers, stood up, and said, "Then do that." Her face twisted. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm done." I looked her dead in the eye. "You don't need me, remember? So from now on, you can handle your own wedding." The silence in that room was heavy. My mom finally looked up, her voice soft and useless. "Girls, come on, don't fight over this." Kayla snapped, "Stay out of it, Mom. She's being dramatic." I ignored them both and walked out. I could hear Kayla yelling behind me, "Fine, get out. I don't need you anyway." As I stepped outside, I realized my hands were shaking, not from anger, but from release. Years of being her backup plan, her safety net, her quiet fixer, it all fell away with that one walk to the parking lot. By the time I reached my car, I wasn't angry anymore. I was numb. On the drive home, I turned off my phone. The notifications kept buzzing, missed calls, texts, group messages lighting up. I didn't look. When I got home, I sat on the couch, stared at the ceiling, and laughed. Quietly, bitterly. Because for the first time, Kayla was right about something. I really hadn't done anything for her. Not anymore.
The first few days after I walked out, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed calls from my mother, voicemails from Kayla that started calm, then turned desperate, then furious. Texts from her bridesmaids saying, "Hey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Kayla's just stressed," followed by, "She didn't mean it that way." I didn't reply to any of them. For the first time in years, I didn't feel obligated to fix anything. The peace was strange at first, almost uncomfortable, like standing in a room after a loud machine suddenly stops. You don't realize how much noise you've been living with until it's gone. I muted the group chat. Then, after a week, I left it. And that silence, that glorious silence, became my new normal. Meanwhile, Kayla's social media told a different story. A week after the fight, she posted a long status. "Sometimes people you thought were your biggest supporters show their true colors when you need them most. But I'm strong enough to do this on my own. Real women don't beg for help, they rise above." The comments were full of heart emojis and "You got this, queen" replies from her friends. I just scrolled past it and closed the app. I didn't need to defend myself. I knew how this worked. Kayla's life was a performance, and the audience never saw what happened backstage. Weeks passed. At first, the vendors I'd been working with started emailing me politely, just little reminders about upcoming deadlines or pending balances.
Since all the contracts were under my name, they still assumed I was managing things. I replied with the same message each time. I'm no longer involved with Kayla's wedding. Please reach out to her directly for updates. Most of them thanked me and asked for her contact info. I gave it. A few days later, one of them, Janine, the event coordinator, called me. Hi, I'm so sorry to bother you, but Kayla isn't answering any of my emails or calls. We need final confirmations on the menu and the balance is overdue. I sighed. I'm sorry, Janine. I can't help with that anymore. Everything should go through her now. She hesitated. It's just, since the contract was under your name, I wanted to make sure. I cancel it, I said. You can refund whatever's refundable. I'm not responsible for the rest. I could practically hear the relief in her voice. Understood. Thank you for letting me know. After that, one by one, the dominoes began to fall. The florist called, the DJ texted, the caterer sent a polite but firm email saying they hadn't received final head counts or payment and would have to release the date. Each time, I gave the same answer. I'm not involved. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't add attitude. Just facts. Eventually, the cancellations started piling up faster than I expected. Apparently, Kayla hadn't bothered to check her messages, or maybe she assumed I was still secretly handling everything like always. Then one morning, I checked my email and saw something that almost made me laugh out loud. Subject: refund confirmation, wedding catering deposit. They had processed the refund automatically, back to my card. I stared at it for a long moment. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was enough to remind me just how much I'd fronted for her perfect day. So I did what any sane person would do. I transferred her portion back to her account and kept what was mine. No note, no explanation, just numbers settling themselves. A week later, my mother called. Her tone was cautious, like she was afraid I'd hang up. Honey, I just want to ask, did you cancel Kayla's caterer? I took a deep breath. No, Mom, I told them to talk to Kayla directly. She's the one who didn't respond. But she said, I know what she said, and it's not my problem anymore. She went quiet for a long time. I could tell she wanted to argue, to remind me how family sticks together. But this time, I didn't leave her an opening. Mom, I've been sticking together for years. I'm tired. And I hung up. 2 more weeks passed. Then came the inevitable. Kayla's fiancé, Mark, calling from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, his voice was panicked. Hey, it's Mark. Listen, I know things have been tense, but could we please talk? I leaned back on the couch. About what? The caterer, he said quickly. They canceled. They said you were the main contact and that you authorized it. I could hear the tension in his voice, half desperation, half confusion. Mark, I told them I wasn't involved anymore, weeks ago. But why would you do that? You know Kayla thought everything was fine. I laughed softly. That's because Kayla doesn't think. She assumes. She assumed I'd keep doing everything even after she screamed that I'd done nothing for her. There was silence on the line. I could almost picture his expression, the dawning realization that he'd hitched himself to a walking storm. Look, I said after a pause, I'm not being cruel. I just stopped doing her favors. There's a difference. I understand, he said quietly. I'll try to fix it. Good luck, I said, and I meant it. When I hung up, I felt something close to satisfaction. Not revenge, not gloating, just a clean, cold sense of closure. For once, I wasn't the one running around patching holes in someone else's sinking ship. And as the wedding day drew closer, the cracks in Kayla's perfect facade began to show. The florist canceled, the DJ booked another event, the caterer was gone. And all I had to do was sit back and watch it unfold, silently. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's absence.
2 weeks before Kayla's wedding, I woke up to a string of missed calls, 12 of them, from her, from my mom, from unknown numbers that I could only assume belonged to panicked bridesmaids. I didn't answer a single one.
By now, the quiet part of me, the one that used to automatically fix things, was gone, replaced by something colder, sharper, tired of being used and discarded. I got ready for work like it was any other day, made coffee, and checked my emails. Among the usual messages, there was one that caught my eye. Subject: urgent, wedding contract status. It was from the event coordinator, Janine. Hi, just confirming that we've released the venue date due to lack of payment and communication. I've tried contacting Caleb multiple times but haven't received any response. Please let her know if possible. I read it 3 times, then deleted it. Later that afternoon, while I was on my lunch break, my phone started buzzing again. This time, I picked up. Finally! Kayla's voice burst through the speaker, raw with frustration. Do you have any idea what's happening? The caterer's canceled, the florist says they never got confirmation, and the venue says we've lost our booking. What did you do? I leaned back in my chair. I didn't do anything, Kayla. That's a lie. They said you were the one who handled all the contracts. They said you told them to cancel. I told them, I said slowly, that I was no longer involved. You told me you didn't need my help, remember? There was a pause. I could hear her breathing quicken, fury building on the other end. That's not what I meant, she snapped. You're supposed to help me. You can't just abandon me like this. I didn't abandon you, I said quietly. You threw me out. Her voice rose an octave. This isn't about that fight. This is my wedding. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for me? I actually laughed. Not loud, not mocking, just a small, disbelieving laugh. Embarrassing for you? She sputtered. Yes, everyone's asking what happened and I have to tell them my sister ruined my wedding. That was the moment something in me hardened completely. Kayla, I said evenly, you told me I'd done nothing for you, so I stopped doing anything for you. That's not sabotage, that's boundaries. And I hung up. For the next few days, the chaos escalated fast. Word spread through the family that something went wrong. My mom called in tears, begging me to just help your sister fix it, please. I asked her, when has she ever helped me? Silence. Then, she's your sister. I said, and I've been her crutch for 30 years. Maybe it's time she learned to walk. I hung up before she could answer. The night before what was supposed to be the wedding, I sat on my couch with a glass of wine, scrolling through social media. Kayla had gone silent online for days, which was unusual for her. Then, around 10 p.m., a post appeared. A long paragraph in dramatic font. When you do everything right and people still try to tear you down, just remember, the truth always comes out. Some people can't stand to see you shine. The comments were full of sympathy, just as before. But this time, I didn't feel angry. I didn't even roll my eyes. I just felt done. The next morning, on what should have been her wedding day, I slept in. No phone calls, no texts, just silence. Then, around noon, my phone buzzed again, an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hey, it's Mark, came a strained male voice. I sat up a little. What do you need? He sounded exhausted, defeated. Everything is falling apart. The caterer's gone, the DJ's booked somewhere else, the venue double booked, and half the guests think the wedding was canceled. What happened? What happened is that your fiancé decided she didn't need me. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said softly, She told me you'd done nothing for her. I smiled faintly. She's consistent, at least. He hesitated. I don't know what to do. You'll figure it out, Mark. But for what it's worth, this isn't new. It's who she is. She's been like this her whole life. I just finally stopped covering for her." He exhaled shakily. "I wish I'd known sooner." "Most people do," I said. "Good luck." And I hung up. By that evening, the disaster was complete. Photos started trickling onto social media, grainy snapshots from guests who'd shown up to a half-empty hall. The decorations looked rushed, mismatched, like someone had thrown them together that morning. The food was a mess, cheap takeout trays instead of a proper meal. People were leaving early. It was the kind of chaos that Kayla could never hide, not even with her usual filters and captions. I didn't gloat. I didn't text her. I didn't even comment when my aunt called later that night, whispering, "Honey, what happened? Kayla's wedding was a disaster." I just said, "I'm not sure," and left it at that. But then, late that night, as I was about to turn off my phone, a message came through. From Kayla. "You ruined everything. I hope you're happy." I stared at it for a while, then typed back, "You said I never helped." Then I hit send. A minute later, I blocked her. For the first time in my life, I didn't care what she'd say next, because I'd finally realized something. I didn't owe her anything. Not my time, not my patience, not even an explanation. She'd built her entire world on the assumption that I'd always clean up her mess, and all I'd done was stop sweeping. And that, it turned out, was enough to make her entire world crumble. It's been a few months since the wedding that wasn't, and life has been strangely peaceful. No late-night calls from Kayla, no passive-aggressive texts from Mom telling me to be the bigger person, no sudden emergencies that only I could fix. Just quiet. And honestly, I didn't realize how much I needed it until I had it. But of course, peace never lasts long in a family like mine. It started small. An unexpected visit from my mother one Sunday afternoon. I opened the door to find her standing there, arms crossed, expression tight. "Hi, Mom," I said cautiously. She didn't bother with small talk. "You didn't have to humiliate your sister like that." I blinked. Humiliate her? I didn't do anything. She handled her own wedding. Mom's lips thinned. "You knew she couldn't manage it all on her own. You've always been the organized one." I let out a humorless laugh. "That's not my fault. I offered to help and she threw me out. What was I supposed to do? Force her to let me fix everything?" She shook her head, disappointment written across her face like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. "She was emotional. You should have understood that." I stared at her for a long moment. "You mean I should have ignored the part where she screamed in my face and told me I'd never done anything for her?" "She didn't mean it," Mom said quickly, waving a hand. "You know how she gets when she's stressed." There it was, the line I'd heard my entire life. You know how she gets. As if Kayla's temper, selfishness, and entitlement were just quirks the rest of us were supposed to tolerate. As if my feelings never mattered in comparison. "Mom," I said quietly, "I'm done making excuses for her. And I'm done letting you guilt me into pretending she's a victim." Her face hardened. "So that's it? You're just going to abandon your family?" "No," I said. "I'm just not going to keep playing the fool." She didn't like that answer. She muttered something about me being cold and ungrateful, then left. I didn't stop her. The silence that followed was heavy, but not painful, just necessary. A few weeks later, I heard through a cousin that Kayla and Mark had officially postponed the wedding indefinitely. Apparently, he'd started noticing the cracks, the manipulation, the temper, the constant need for attention. They were still together, technically, but things weren't looking great. And of course, in true Kayla fashion, she told everyone the wedding collapsed because I sabotaged it. She said I'd been jealous, that I didn't want her to be happy. The story spread fast, through cousins, aunts, even family friends who hadn't spoken to me in years. Some believed her. Some didn't. But I stopped caring who did, because the truth didn't need defending anymore. A few months later, during a rare family gathering, I saw her again. She walked in late, wearing oversized sunglasses indoors, her voice too loud, laughter too forced. The room went quiet when she saw me. For a moment, I thought she might come over and say something, anything. But instead, she just smirked and turned away, launching into a story about her amazing honeymoon plans that everyone knew didn't exist. I just sat there, sipping my drink, watching her talk, watching her keep up the act. And I realized something. She'd never change. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't have to. Everyone around her still fed into it, still comforted her, still excused her. Even after everything, my mother hovered nearby, doting on her like she was the one who'd been wronged. No one asked me how I was doing. No one mentioned the truth. They just avoided eye contact. Too polite, or too afraid, to acknowledge the obvious. So I smiled, made polite conversation, and left early. Because I finally understood that peace wasn't something they could give me. It was something I had to protect from them. As I drove home, my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I hope you're proud of yourself. You broke this family. No name, no signature, but I didn't need one. I knew it was Kayla. I looked at the message for a moment, then deleted it. I didn't respond. Because she was wrong. I hadn't broken the family. I'd just stopped being the glue holding together people who never wanted to stick in the first place. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty about that. Not even a little.